how do I live an African culture, a cultural life in these modern days where we're living in the city and things are so difficult?
Culture is evolving from time to time in terms of the lifestyle, but not in terms of values. In the ancient time, we as traditional healers, we never knew glass beads. But today we are dreaming of glass beads shown by our ancestors. We never wear what is called a hair or a bai because of it was made out of cotton. We used to wear animal skin, but when times goes on, things started to change bit by bit. But the essence of the value of culture is what needs not to change. You cannot materialize the values that we had in the past, but you can change in terms of material because of culture always evolves. There is nothing wrong for any person to stay in a suburb or stay in the rural areas or in the semi-urban areas. But there is everything wrong if a person will forget who they are.
How do I begin to now take action in actively understand or connecting with my lineage, connecting with my ancestors, even if I don't necessarily know all their names, in connecting with my bloodline?
My advice to young people is that as much as they spend more time on their gadgets, on their cell phone and all those things, one platform they must take information of is the platform of AFROSAVVY. I would say that without doubt. I have seen the initiative that is done there. And the many spiritual pages as well. They are aiming to teach a lot of people. And they must never, ever, young people, they must seize this tendency of, Togoza Koko Gunjal, this is the story of my life. They must start questioning. If I would say, for an example, Inzunza is this, you must question me until you understand it. Don't be indoctrinated. They must move away from mental slavery, that Christianity. We are not pastors. We are people that needs to share information. Pastors, they indoctrinate you. They will tell you that Jesus Christ was white, but the Bible will give you a different analysis. If you are reading the Bible, you will understand what I'm saying. But if you are hearing them, they will tell you a completely different story. So they must seize this thing of Togoza Koko. And also young people, they must learn one thing. There is difference between attaining knowledge and becoming the slave of knowledge. When you want to attain knowledge, you must make sure that you question, you apply your logic, you apply your wisdom, you question when you are not clear. But if you are a slave of knowledge, you firstly become a human worshipper. To say, no, Mkulu Shobel Kulu, he had 100,000 members. And everything that I would say, you feel like is true. Sometimes you may be misled. For those who read the Bible, they will understand that the children of Israel, they were misled by their own leaders whom they trust. So this thing is still happening in our time. People, the major people that will start teaching things, they will end up losing the essence of it because of this fame got into their head, and they will start now speaking things that are not clear, and they will start believing, yes, Gunjalo. They must make sure that for them to attain knowledge, you cannot be a good student if you don't question the teacher. You must always question the teacher in order to understand, to avoid being subject. You want to liberate yourself from religion, what has been brought by the Western in order to indoctrinate Africans, and you are coming to a system whereby a person will start now creating something that is not true, that is untrue, because of people are very scared to ask. I am saying to them, please, they must ask. You need to ask by all the time. If you see something, this does not make sense, you must ask. That's how you can be able to get knowledge. Because of we are in the journey of self-discovery. Our knowledge, our indigenous knowledge system is based on oral tradition whatsoever that you will read, even if you can read about Idlos in a tongue in the university capacity under the anthropology or ethnology. Therefore, you must still question that. Because of you must firstly interrogate the author. Because of the author might have a different philosophy. Maybe his philosophy is to use Ubungoma to make money. Firstly, interrogate the author before you can interrogate the article of the author, so that you can be able to get knowledge. But I'm happy because of the majority of the people now in Congo Iyasoga, most of the people, I feel like they are actually being freed, or they are freeing themselves from this mental slavery. by understanding who they are. When people came into Africa, they introduced us the ceilings and the mazenk and all those things. Then they took our architecture of creating houses with a roof of grass, you know. Today, white people, they are doing what we Africans have to was doing. And we are doing what the white people, they are no more doing it. There are many church loyalists in South Africa. The most church loyalists in South Africa are blacks. And the white people, they are now initiating and becoming sangomas. And the black person, when he has to become a sangoma, he will tell you to say, Jesus Christ does not like that. Then you will start questioning yourself, who is fooling who? Who is actually being brainwashed in that sense, if I may put it in that term? Who is being brainwashed? Therefore, to demystify spirituality, people must make sure that every opportunity that they get, they must take that opportunity in order to learn more from the work. But never ever be a blind follower of any person. You must make sure that you interrogate.
The role of royalty within pre-colonial African times, you know, what were royal families all about?
When we're talking about royalty in Africa, first and foremost that we must understand is that how tribes were in the past. You'll find they say these are the Ndwandwes, these are Omtetwa, these are the Zulus. Now I'm talking about the Zulus, which are common nation that is known in South Africa. The Zulus, the Ndwandwes, and all those things. The majority of the people, all of us, in fact, we do have a royal blood into ourselves. All Khoza, they were royalty. Your surname are your royalty, in fact. That is why you'll find out they will say the ancestor that is directly linked to your blood, we call them Amakhosi, Amakhosi Sekai, because of they are the kings, you know. Even in the spirit world, you find somebody who is Umtetwa, you know, you lived with your family in their house, for an example, and they don't want to assist you. You'll go to Usbongo Fanana, Wagwamtetwa, and those Umtetwa, they are the part of the clan of the Mtetwas in the spirit world as well. We are a nation that side, they are the nation that side of Umtetwa. So it is not something unique if somebody will say, I'm from the royal blood. And people, they must seize the tendency to say, no, as a royal blood, I cannot be initiated by somebody who is not royalty. Who is actually not royalty? Because of, in my own knowledge, all of us, Sipetwe Amakhosi, our ancestors are from the royal blood, all of them. That is why most of the time you'll find out that there is also a cloth that is related to royalty. Specifically in South Africa, we'll find ourselves seizing Ngonyama. We wear Pailongonyama. We also have the leopard skin. Our ancestors will show us the leopard skin to show that each and every person that actually lives in this world has the blood of royalty somewhere, somehow, you know. So, therefore, you find the Ngonis, they had Ondwandwe, they have Omtetwa, they have Ondlovu, and all those things. Then they have also Ushaka that became a Zulu. Had to conquer all these people now, these other kingdoms, and put it under his kingdom and say, Isizwe Samazulu, Noma Isizwe Sakwazulu, meaning that they were conquered. But it does not mean that Omtetwa, they were never kings. We might not have the king who is called as Umtetwa today, but because of they were absorbed by a certain royalty somewhere to extend their royalty and put them under their wings. You know, therefore, I just want to say, when it comes to royalty, we must all know that as African people, our royalty is enshrined in what we call them Isbongo. And the Isbongo, Sinestakazelo Nebongo Zagini, which is actually done in the royal houses. The role of a traditional healer is to become a mediator between the living and those who are no more. When I say those who are no more, I mean on a physical aspect, in terms of those who have passed on. Because of in African spirituality, we don't believe that a person dies. There is nowhere you will find maybe a grave written die in peace. We're normally familiar with rest in peace because of it's more of a prayer for them to rest in peace. Therefore, those who have rested, we call them abalele. Then those who are active with us, we call them amadlozi, because of ilabo abadlozomelayo, meaning that those are the people who are those are the spirits of those who have passed on but who are remaining interactive with us. As I said, that we are mediators between the living and those who have passed away. We are actually the African mediums, just like we find the mediums everywhere. So the role of a healer is to enlighten whatsoever that is cultural and spiritual as well, because of culture is driven by spirituality. Without spirituality, we're not going to be having different cultures. So therefore, a traditional healer, it does not only heal by using medicinal plants or extract from animal remains. They work beyond that. They are playing the role of being psychologists. They are playing a role of being physicians, and they are spiritualists by its nature, by their nature, to be exact. So we are there to provide healing mentally, psychologically, spiritually, and physically. So that is what a traditional healer actually does. We practice our ways long time ago, before even the white people or the Caucasian arrived in Africa. Because of from that time, we had people who had different profession within the traditional healing. Because of many people think traditional healing is about being a sangoma. Being a sangoma is one type of being a traditional healer. Traditional healer is vast to a level of having the birth attendant, abilities. We have the surgeon, maybe we have abatandas, the prayer warriors as well. Before even religion came, there was an issue of unomkhobulwane, where people will go to the mountain and pray to Umvelinqange, God, and he will serve. He or she, I must be specify on this because of this different belief system about who Umvelinqange, it's a he or a she, but he or she has to send his messenger, his thunywa, that is called unomkhobulwane, which was a rain goddess or a rain god, to provide us God. Therefore, those things were done through prayer, because of we are actually addressing a different entity than an entity which is a transformed soul into a spirit like amadlozi. There we're dealing about izithunywa, which are not amadlozi. This context, they are izithunywa zikamenzi. So our role is just a set healing the body, the mind, the soul, and the spirit. Because of, one would ask, how do you heal a spirit? You heal a spirit because of, for an example, there are certain sicknesses that a person, for an example, will find themselves very ill physically. When you go to the doctors cannot see anything. So that is categorized as a spiritual illness. It is not you who is sick, but it is the spirit that is in you that is sick. So therefore, that's where we are coming in as the traditional healers, as the spiritualist or a spiritist, in order to address that kind of a sickness, like uktwas. It contains a lot of spiritual sicknesses. Therefore, a healer, a traditional healer, is his role or her role to make sure that that person, his health or her health, is balanced.
So what is the significance of totem animals, and how did certain animals come to represent certain tribes and bloodlines?
As spiritual beings, we are always attracting certain types of animals. Depends on what your ancestors in the past used to love. For an example, you find people called Ondlovu. You know, those are elephant. Most of the time you'd find those people, they had the strongest relationship with Indlovu, with an elephant. So that is how you find out that Istarazelo, when they praises, when they praise themselves, they will praise themselves with the relationship that they have on Ndlovu. You see, they say Ndlovu yaswela abelusi, yahlaleka ngokuswela belusi. You know, it shows, it tells you already that they had Ndlovu perhaps as a pet during those times. You know, then they used to come into the yard, then they will stay in the yard because of no one will take them for a tour. Or to be loose and all those things. So our animal totems Every person, Majola, they will relate with snake. They call it Ujola, Ujolinkomo, and all those things, which was a snake also that was looking after their cows as well. So therefore, those people who are Ujolinkomo, they will understand that we had this relationship. That's why some of the people, if you get a child as a woman, within those people, there are certain cultures that will say, no, we must see a snake coming in to confirm that this child is biological, our child. So we had a lot of relationship. Animal totem and animal spirits or spirit animals are not only African, even white people, every person had that, because of those are things that we are dealing with. One of the signs of a person that actually have the spiritual connection or ongenwe yidlozi, normal who is possessed by a certain ancestor, all the time they will attract certain animals. For an example, it will speak to you, you come in, then ubona makati, but amakati like awatanda abantu but when ayakuthanda, because of there is something with that cats that you don't know. Some people, they will dream of such, dreaming of snake, of a python, then you will know that this is my ancestors. It's a symbol of my ancestors, even though a snake is not an ancestor, but it symbolizes an ancestor because of it shows that it had a relationship with your ancestors in the past. Maybe the snakes will come and visit into their house. There are people today who are also understanding the wisdom behind, who are carrying snakes in their own yard and all that. It's unfortunately, snake has been interpreted as bad omen. You have it, utwele, without having the understanding why you need to have it. Divination, it's whereby you get a message from the spirit world. Divination, it works in different forms. Divination is whereby we find ourselves dividing yourself into two in order to get the message. That's why divination, the way divination is coming from there, because of you cannot do any spiritual divination if you are not possessed by a certain spirit. You can attempt to do that, but you cannot do it perfectly because of you need to have a spirit weight that is like a code or that will unlock to your ancestors. For an example, if you start doing a divination, you must firstly invoke the spirit that is in you. Like myself, as Ibrahim, a lot of people don't know that my closing name is Ushobel Kuluga Simelani, or Mafelempeni Khoza, Oskosana, and others. So if I need to channel the divination, I must firstly channel the spirit as my unlock code to say they should be the ones that runs quick to go by Hlangana Namadlozi was somewhere so that I can be able to do it. So you can do it through a candle. Some people, they use it through a candle, the divination maybe by the use of a candle. Others, they use it by the use of amanzi. Others, they will use it as a part of what is called iselo. Iselo is what is normally called as ikono, or others they will say isgupu. This is iselo. There are people that uses this to divine with their ancestors so that they can get the messages, so that they can be able to transmit the messages from the spirit world to your spirit world. It is one thing that we normally does before we can treat people. That is the wisest thing in my own knowledge. You cannot heal a person without doing a certain divination to actually see. It's more of a tool of diagnosing a problem within a person spiritually. We don't have our x-ray. I normally say to my trousers, Amatambo, take it like a floor x-ray, whereby it will tell you what is the actual problem with the person so that you may not misdiagnose. It will give you the direction. So divination is like that. So also you can do divination by just looking at the picture. It depends on a person from one person to the other. It's either others, they will do it by looking at the picture. Others, they will look at it. They will look at the patient directly into the eye. And therefore, they can be able to see what is happening in that particular person's life. Mostly, that one is normally used mainly by the soothsayers and others they use a crystal ball and all those things. Like spirituality is universal. There are people who are blacks who are using crystal stones or crystal balls in their own shrine like ours because of basuke benedlozi elisebenza in that way. Our culture is informed by our spirituality. There is something called isiko, there is something called usiko, there is something that is called isikompilo, you know. These are three things that all our cultures, but they differ. So isiko, it is something that is practiced by a certain nation. The Zulu nation, they will have isiko labo. The Sothos will have isiko labo. The Tswanas will have isiko labo and all those things. Then usiko, it is whereby within the Zulus, it differs through surname to surnames or from one clan to the next. But in the very same nation of the Zulus, you find there are people to say, Tina, we are from KwaZulu, usiko lasekhaya is to do this. Then there are those who will say, Tina sibakawamthethwa onyambose, usiko lwethu is like this, but they speak the very same language. That is usiko. Then there is something we call isikompilo. That is what we also know, we call it isintu. Isintu is based more on the laws of nature. For an example, those things isintu are the ones that unify us as human beings because of isintu, umuntu, abantu. They always share the very same philosophy yakwantu. So it's whereby, for an example, we will know that if a person passes on, the knowledge Sikompilo will teach us to say, if when a person passes on, it's a separation of the body and the soul. So when the body is taken, there are certain rituals that needs to be done in order to come and collect the soul to a certain place so that it can be able to rest in peace. That is isintu. You know, each and every person does that, but ngosiko noma ngesiko that is different. Others will say we use umlahlabantu or umlahlankosi, is one and the same thing. Others will say siyuza umyezane. Others will say thina siyuza amaqabunga wesihlahla sepentshisi and all those things. But the fact remains is that all of those things, they must be executed one or of the other. Isintu will make a person to be a healer, but how we initiate, it comes to isigo or usigo of initiating that spirit. But at the end of the day, that spirit needs to be initiated because of that spirit has came and it has chosen a person, and that particular person must be a healer one way or the other. I, as Ibrahim Abdul Hakim Khoza, I grew up known as Ujabu Wawa Khoza because of it was strange during those times to understand that they are black Muslims. People understood to say I'm Indians. Up to this day, there are many people who don't know that they are black Muslims. Muslim is not a nation, it's a faith. It took me time to realize. I started very early to have encounters with ancestral spirits, with abantabadala, madlozi in my dreams and all those things. But it took me time to accept. I never saw myself being a Sangoma in my life because of I had strong aim and goals to become something else rather than being a Sangoma. So I made means to avoid it. But we don't choose to be healers. We have to do what we are born to do because of we are born for that cause. We don't just get it on the road or something like that. I had a problem to become a healer, considering the judgments that I will be getting from the Islamic community, from the Muslim, because of there's a lot of people I grew up being Muslim. There are people that I actually recruited into become Muslims, you know. So for me, it was something like a myth. Until ancestors, they demonstrated themselves to me. They said, this is what we actually want. Therefore, I started getting sick. When I started getting sick, I did not understand why I got sick. When I was taken to hospital, they would say, "Lo muntu akaguli, we don't know what is happening." But they could see that I'm weak, but they cannot diagnose anything on me, meaning that they cannot be able to heal me. So they had to, unfortunately, send me at home most of the time. Therefore, I started having dreams and twasa, You know, I found myself under the water, being initiated and all those things. So I understood because of there were part of the family which were healers that when I had to visit, then I had to visit Okoko, who were healers during those times. Then I understood to say, this is what is happening there. This is what is actually happening to me and all those things. But therefore, I had to take a decision. In fact, the first person to tell me to say, I must accept the calling and initiate as a traditional healer was actually what we call them the sheikh. A sheikh is like a leader in an Islamic place like umfundisi or a pastor. But those sheikh, we call them the pastor, but they are spiritualists. And it was an Indian who said to me, you see, if God really feels what is happening into your life is evil, why is not protecting you? How many times you've been asking him? Don't you think you are misunderstanding God? You know, maybe God wants you to do this and you are thinking otherwise, you know. And remember, by that time I was so blind, I thought Sangoma said to worship ancestors, you know, not knowing that there's a difference between worshiping and admiring ancestors. So I thought they were worshiping ancestors. So I thought they were idols. They are idols because of we believe in monotheism, believing in the oneness of God. So when I saw that, that's where I started realizing. Then I had to go in Twasa. I went to Epehlweni. It was in New Year's Eve when I decided to say, I found a place where they pointed me at, so I had to go to Epehlweni on New Year's Eve. I could not even wait for a few hours to see the new year because I was very scared. What actually made me more scared is because I dreamt of myself dying a couple of times. Most of the things when I was at Epehlweni, it was like a repetition of what I have seen in dreams because I've seen a lot of things happening in dreams. When I became a healer, I was doing it because I was forced. The honest truth is that I never liked. Even if I was a healer, I was wearing beads, you know, I knew how to divine, I knew how to heal because I was more of a herbalist. You know, it was me, Uskanda Mayes, and all those things. I knew a lot of things. But trust me, I never accepted being a healer. When I had to come back, I found myself being healed. I found myself being free and all those things. Then I decided to say, no, I can't live this life. They have asked me what they want. So then I give them what they want. So I want my life back. So, but what happened, I lived as a healer. They've opened doors for me. I've worked for bigger companies. But a lot of things that I have achieved in my life, it was made through entrepreneurship because I always had this blood of being self-employed. If I don't work, I start running a business. And when the business will show the potential of growth, then, but because of the nature of us as Black people to say, we are trained, we went to school in order to become employees. So I always wanted to be an employee, not anymore, not in 2020, not in 2021. I don't see myself being employed anymore in my life, regardless of what circumstances. So therefore, I had to be forced again, ancestors, to say, okay, right, you are an entrepreneur. It was in 2018, 2019, when my ancestors told me to say, you have done everything that you have done with your life. We have allowed you to do it, but now we want you to start acting on this mandate. My mandate my ancestors gave me is to educate people, to train people, to heal people, and to guide people. And this is what is actually happening now. That is my journey in short. But what I can tell you, I've been into this field for more years, because I became initiated when I was very young. That's how a person will start wondering, this young boy, how does he know a lot of things? How I initiated and how people are initiated is quite different. Every time the knowledge is getting missing. But we are trying by all means to preserve the ancient knowledge that we got. Actually, the calling, it's a good thing. It only becomes a bad thing if we tend to misunderstand it or we reject what we basically know. Ancestors do not force anyone until you make them to force you. The majority of the people, they will understand to say, I do have the signs that I have to be a healer, because of most of the time they will indicate it to you, you know. And also in our time, or in our day and age, you find people that actually shows about the signs and symptoms of being a healer. But when you resist, it's where now they will show you that they have power. People will start getting sick, you'll start having problems with your partner. Whatsoever that you take it as your own pillar, they will break it. If you love your kid so much, they will put your kid into the hospital. If you love your husband, they will break that marriage. If you love your car, they will put you into accidents. That's why you find out that the signs, we cannot be able to give with the signs that shows that the person does have that. It's because of they've seen you that you are rejecting it. And I understand that rejecting the sense of being a healer is always associated with evil. Sangomas had a lot of problems during the time of the Witchcraft Act. It was even worse when the people were forced not to practice their own spirituality, and they had to be jailed, others they had to be killed by the government of South Africa. So during those times, and also the religion came in place to define or give a perception that African spirituality, when people practicing that in terms of using medicinal herbs, it's all about witchcraft. So it is hard for people to accept that, especially if you are from the family that will not support you. Then it becomes harder. Then they will force you and break all the pillars that you balance with until you accept. You will say in my language, bazogoba uphondo abantu abadala, until you submit to their own will. But I would say that to many people out there, there is nothing wrong by being a healer. I am very, very glad today because of being a traditional healer is trending, but it has to trend in a proper way, not in a negative way, in a proper way. You know, so because of, as I've said, the traditional healers is more into life than what we think it is. It's about being a spiritual father that will revert people into their own cultures. So the more people understand their own cultures, the more their life becomes smooth, rather than having problems that they don't anticipate in future, you know. So, yeah, for me, I would repeat again to say no, having a calling, accept it without any doubt. Firstly, don't accept without having a proper knowledge and be sure. Because of, unfortunately, there are people that can be able to create certain spirits, you know, and send it to you. Then you will start thinking that you are a Sangoma, or you have to be a Sangoma, when they actually using certain motives that will create illusion in your mind. In your sleep, you're thinking, which I would say is Ilwan, you know. But once you are sure, you are definitely sure that you are to be a traditional healer, you must accept it. You're not gonna die. People, they must never ever believe some myth to say, hey, bazoklisikazi lembuzi then malungaphumi uyafa. There's nothing like that. In the Zulu initiation processes, liyadliwa alphalazo. They should be the first people that died, if that is the truth, you know. So there's nothing like that. People, they must never believe in people speaking things that they are not sure of. There's nothing like that. They make you to live for a reason. Accept, then you live for a reason.
What do you say about Christianity and African spirituality, especially because Christianity came to us through colonialism? You know, what do you believe or understand about the working those two lifestyles together?
I think we must differentiate between two things: the religion and spirituality. Religion, it is something that is man-made, or something that was discovered by a certain person, or a certain philosophy that was propagated by a certain person. One way or the other is interconnected with a man or a female into it, you know, like Christianity from Christ, you know, and all those, as you say. So we must understand that within the religion itself, there are certain cultures that are involved. For an example, if we say our culture to appease our spirits as African people, we must spill down umqombothi, you know. Then there are cultures that believes that they must use wine by doing so. Mostly the Jewish, the Roman, they're using wine. So that is the culture of the Jews and the Romans. So never ever being a blind follower of religion. You must differentiate between these two things. You must understand that the religion is made mostly of the laws that will conscientize you about what we called in the past umvelinqangi or kakamacholo or mwali, whatsoever they used to call it, you know, to understand, to live a holistic life. But we must differentiate within the religion. There are certain influences which may decampaign your own culture. Your own culture must be upheld because of your own culture was made or allowed by the supreme being, which is God himself. You know, if somebody, for an example, will say it is good to drink Panado, but if you have to go and then they will give you a certain motive for a headache or something like that, then it is wrong. Then that particular person is actually indoctrinating you, even if you are in religion, you know, because of one way or the other. Our practice as African, our spirituality as African is basically holistic. What do I mean holistic? We are using what God has created. All the trees that we are using, all the plants that we are using, all the animals that we are using are created by God. Understood the science that God to say this science can be used by particular people because of the very same thing that you will accept, you know. It is easy for somebody to sacrifice a chicken for the purpose of doing a braai pack or a chicken potion so that he might not go hungry. And when he eats, there are certain nutrients and nutrients that will balance that particular person's body. But if I will slaughter a chicken in order to heal somebody out of a certain condition in line with my culture, therefore I have to be criticized, you know. So somewhere, somehow, a person is losing the knowledge. You will never understand who you are if you don't understand your own culture, firstly. You must understand your own culture first so that you can understand your own spirituality before you can understand the philosophy or the religion of other people as well, you know. So for me, there are, in my own knowledge, there is no contradiction between Christianity and African culture. There is no contradiction. It depends on how you are reading your Bible, and also it depends on how you were taught. Because of if you would say ancestors are not recognized in the Bible, then I would say the Bible itself, it's a book with a lot of stories of ancestors because of Joseph, Jacob, Abraham, and all those things. Those are the ancestors. If you know you study about Jesus Christ, they will firstly tell you about the lineage, the ancestral lineage of Jesus Christ in Matthew 1 when it starts. So therefore, if you say you don't believe in ancestors, that is a very informed statement, because of it's either you believe Komthethwa or Nyambose, which are your African linked ancestors, or you believe in Jacob, Isaac, and Jacob, you know, if you believe in that. But one way or the other, we believe in ancestors. So I don't see any contradiction, just the knowledge that is missing. But at the end of the day, we all know that when the Bible came, as you have said, it was used as a tool to colonize us. And to colonize us is not to enslave us, but colonization was a mental slavery. We're not forced into doing anything, but they control our mind. And whoever control your mind, control your whole entire life, because of your mind controls voluntary and involuntary movement. Everything that you'll be doing according to the philosophy of a colonized mindset. That is why a lot of people, they don't understand who they are. That is the reason I say, understand who you are. Firstly, understand your culture before you can understand the religion. You cannot know, if you don't know, for an example, your grandfather, why you care to want to know who Abraham was. You must firstly know your grandfather so that you can be able, once you know your grandfather, you'll understand the same pattern of ancestral lineage to say Abraham gave birth to Jacob, Jacob gave birth to the 12 sons, which are called the 12 sons of Jacob of Israel. The 12 tribes of Israel comes from there because of you definitely have the strongest foundation as an African child.
The structure that we had before colonial times or before colonization, do you think it's possible for us to, reintroduce some of those systems, and do you think that it would benefit us in any way?
Yes, it is possible, but it is hard in our time. It is possible that we can do that, but it is hard. Why am I saying it is possible? It is because of whatsoever then is done by a human being can be reversed, can be reversed. Whatsoever that is done by a human being can be reversed. But the attitude will make it impossible, to make it hard for us to do that. Imagine if I would say, for an example, I will buy the land, and in that land I will buy horses in order for me to revert into my Sotho culture, and I will use a horse to travel around there. Firstly, it will be hard for us because of we don't own horses anymore. If you need to buy a horse, you must be a millionaire to live the life that we lived in the past. If you want to wear amapeshu, we will pay 7,000 or more, up to 35,000 for us to wear animal skin, For us to build a house with a roof of glass, it will be expensive. So like I said earlier, to say the life that we are living now, it's a life that white people have introduced to us and left it with us, and they live our life today. Because of, it will be hard, but we can be able to do it only if the economy of South Africa can be transformed. If we can move from the system of capitalism, which was influenced by the factory owners, the white people who came here and used such a system to take away our economy that we had in terms of the bartering system and revert into communism. Therefore, as communism is owned by the people of the country, therefore we can be able to influence our ancient lives and go back to the life that we lived. Because of, for an example, it was easy for a person to eat a red meat as much as they want. But today you eat a red meat too much, then you'll suffer from gout. Because of the meat that we used before and the meat that we are using today is not the same. So somewhere, somehow they are injected. That's why we will get sick. But in the past, we used to eat as much as we are. So therefore, in that sense, I would say it's possible but hard. Economic condition, they make it hard for us to reach there. But it's possible that we can do it if we can be able to tell ourselves to say, this is what we want. For an example, if we can invest into ourselves as black people, I think we can reclaim our lives. But if we think that whosoever that is been advantageous in terms of having certain amount in your own life and you think you are a king, then the problem starts from there. We will live in an oppressive system. We will have a lot of millions, but we will never be registered under the richest people in the world. Black people who is not going to be, they're not going to be registered under the Reserve Bank and all those things, known by Reserve Bank, because of the expenditure that we are doing. We are designed to think that way. Let us change our way of thinking so that we can revert into our own culture.